And we're live.
Cool.
How you doing, Speedy?
Good. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well.
How's all the audience doing out there?
I believe everything's good. Tuck that cable out of the way, please.
This one?
Yeah. That's good.
Better?
Yep. Gotta have it looking good.
That's right.
All right, so we got a few people on here. Let me see who's here. All right, I think everything's working.
Good. Apollo people as many texts I got this morning.
All right, hang on. Let me see. I think we're good. I mean, this thing's got a little bit of a lag. So, guys, if you guys can hear us and you're watching us, let us know. Let me refresh this thing. For some reason, oh, there it is. I see it. Got 61 people on here.
Cool.
There it is. All right, boss.
Well, before we get started, I need to take care of a little business. As you know, I just got back from the Tack Driver, and you noticed that you might have been called out a little bit by Mr. Jim Klein. He asked if I would cover you for your registration. So you're the first official F-class shooter to register for the Tack Driver.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
So I had to cover you for $100, so I hope you brought a $100 bill with you. I'll trade you your entry form
It's right here.
for a $100 bill. I don't know what your cartridge was, but now it's winter chicken dinner.
Yeah. Okay, so you signed me up for everything.
Yep,
Good.
signed him up for everything. So Mr. Cortina is now officially registered for the Tack Driver 6. I hope the rest of y'all.
So you went to the Tack Driver.
Yeah. Oh,
There
yeah,
you
that's
go.
the most important thing. Wait a minute, I'm not through. Before you ask me any questions, I have a message to deliver from Mr. Klein
Uh-oh.
as of this morning. Let me bring this up for you. Oops, you don't want to see that. Jim Klein. He said, make sure he knows if he brings anything other than a 7mm, I'm calling his ass out. He's been already calling people about the PPC. So evidently words got to Jim Klein that you're looking for other calibers other than the 7mm.
So it's very obvious that there are no secrets in the BR world.
No.
Nobody can keep a secret. So, all right. So I have to bring a 7mm.
You have to bring a 7mm. And you know, the class is open for F-class gun. We go all the way up to 20. I can say we now since I'm part of the group.
Yeah. Well, can you imagine if I showed up and just beat him with a, 708 or something?
As long as it's 7mm. You spurred Brett Solomon on as well to sign up for the Tack Driver 6, and he's going to shoot his 7 Psalm F-class gun. So you guys could form a team.
So explain the team setup. I've never been there. So how does a team work? How many members to a team?
4 members to the team. So it's pretty interesting how some of the teams worked. You can see the teams that had been there before. They've got their spotting scope set up behind each other, and as one shooting, usually one or two of the guys is looking at what they're doing, and when they get off the line, they compare notes and what happened and what didn't happen. So when the next one goes up, he's prepared to shoot. So similar like what y'all do.
Yeah, this is very similar. This is
yeah.
very similar to F-class.
Yeah,
coaching.
so it's real similar to that. Other than there's no coaching while the shooter is.
Oh,
actually
okay.
shooting.
So the shooter goes up, then they shoot on their own.
Right.
But the rest of the members can be watching.
Right. So they're already contemplating what they're going to do the day before during practice, looking at the conditions. When they go to the line, they're talking to each other about this condition is similar to the one that we saw yesterday and what it was doing. So I was privy to a little bit of the information, but each team had kind of its own philosophy and own approach to going to the line and where the main flags were, what to look at. The fun part was the match on Wednesday when every competitor could only set one win flag out, and the different team members that were shooting, they were shooting as individual at the time, and you could see that
they
not
set
all
them up.
of them agreed to where that one win flag should be. So that's really interesting. And that was a winner take all match, so I'm going a day earlier next time to be part of that.
Okay. Okay. So
And it'll probably changed up again because Jim Klein doesn't do a whole lot of things the same every time.
yeah. Well, once I show up with a 7mm and I win, he's probably gonna ban the 7mm.
It could happen.
Yeah.
I think there's only been one 7mm shot. Also, there's been some I saw a 300 WSM, I believe, and one 284. But I asked Jim as well what the top cartridges were in the oops, that's Erik Cortina. In the winner's circle. And he said 6 of the top 10 were 6 PPCs. There was a 22 PPCs and 3 BRAs.
Okay.
So all smaller calibers. I mean, I didn't feel that I was handicapped at all by shooting my 6 PPC.
Yeah.
I made 2 bad shots, but that was my fault. It wasn't the cartridge's fault.
Yeah. Well, I need a cartridge that can make up for bad shots. I mean, that's the key right there.
Take a rail gun or something like that.
Yeah.
The conditions change so fast out there. A lot of times, you don't have a chance to finish it.
Yeah. Well, it's starting to rain here.
Yeah.
So you guys might hear some rain, which is good. We kind of need it really bad.
Thunder and tornadoes, not so good.
Yeah. All right, boss. What do you want to talk about?
Well, we got any questions yet?
Okay. So here's the deal. At 11 a.m., if you guys are a member of the forum or Patreon, you guys are going to get to ask me or Speedy. I assume most of the questions are going to go to Speedy live. So about 5 minutes before, I'm going to open up the link. Or you guys, if you guys are a member or you already have the link, I sent out an email last night. So the link is in there. If you're a member, just click that link. It'll take you to the forum where the thread is posted, and then you can just click on the link there. That'll take you to where we're going. We can only take 8 at a time. So once I ask you a question, well, the first thing I need you to do is when you join, turn off your microphone immediately so we don't have a lot of feedback and a lot of noise. And once you ask your question and everything's good, please go ahead and hang up immediately or, exit from that app so that'll leave room for others to join. So we're going to do that at 11 a.m. It is 10:38 right now. So right now, you and I have about 22 minutes just to
kill,
shoot the shit.
Well, I did bring some stuff with me. Let's see, where should I start? I'm going to start with the bad actions here, and it's nothing that's detrimental to the quality of Bat's work or workmanship. But what I've been seeing and been hearing from some of the customers I've got is that I've changed firing pin spring in my bat, and now it doesn't shoot at all, or it shoots very poorly, or shoots inconsistently. And they'll ask me if I can take a look at it. I'll take a look at it, and the first thing I do when I check, I want to make sure. Is this camera on up here?
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure that on your cocking piece, it's not bottoming out on the cocking notch down there. So I'll take a piece of business card. In this case, it's just a piece of index card, and I want to make sure that there's clearance underneath that. If there is, then it's something else in the firing control. But what I've been noticing, especially from the customers who change firing pin springs, I believe when they're tightening up the firing pin against the cocking piece here, that they're over tightening it, and what they're doing, they're causing a slight setback of the firing pin right here at the shoulder, because see, this one's not one of them. This one's the one that the customer dropped. But you'll see a little flange kind of take place right here. And when that does, it sets the firing pin further back into the cocking piece than it needs to be. And when that happens, it allows the firing pin to move further forward into the bolt itself. And now instead of stopping here on this boss right here, it's starting to stop here on the cocking piece. On the roller cocking pieces, it's an even worse situation, because a lot of times, probably about, maybe 1 or 2 out of 5 that I've checked, they've actually cracked that cocking piece where that little pin goes through it. And I don't know why it cracks on the back, and you don't see it unless you take it out. So I said, when you install these things, you want to tighten them up, but just tighten them up just enough that you're up against that shoulder, but not much more where you're causing that stuff to go back into that cocking piece a little bit deeper and cause that flange, which sets everything back, which allows this to move further forward. Okay. So that's one issue I'm starting to see a lot here. I said, I guess you and I are responsible for that, for talking about changing springs and keeping everything current. So I change springs every time I change barrels. I'm going to work up a new load for that thing, so the old spring really is not of detriment to me. Another thing I saw this weekend at my birthday party.
Oh, by the way, happy birthday, boss!
Thank you. 71 years old, still here.
71?
71.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Are you being serious?
I'm serious.
Wow, you do not look 71.
Well, see, when you burn up a lot of bullets and powder, you live a lot longer.
Obviously. Well, good job.
Another thing that happened this weekend, we had at my birthday party, we had a shoot to kind of mimic that last day at the Tack Driver, that last day at the Tack Driver. They called it the Helen Keller shoot. The reason they called it that was because you couldn't see your bullet holes. You couldn't see the rings on your target. You couldn't see any of your shots. So you would just shoot blindly and then wait till your targets come back, see what you've got.
Wait. Why couldn't you see them? Is it the mirage was real bad, or was it purposely?
Pretty bad.
Okay.
And it didn't seem like any of the scopes that you had, be it variable or fixed power scopes, made much of a difference. Even the spotting scope, people would give. Did you see any of my shots? So the way I approached it, we got to shoot a bench rest target for group first, and then a score target for score after that. And what I did, here's one. The way I approached it, you see this little square right here? You couldn't see any of these rings or barely see them. So what I would do is I would wait for the conditions to get pretty consistent. I would just hold on this, I guess that would be the bottom left corner, and have my shots hit down here. And when it came time to shoot and I saw a condition that was holding pretty steady, I just shot 5 as fast as I could. And then when I went to the for the score targets, I would say, well, I was holding here and I was hitting here. So I just imprinted in my mind that black square on that score target to hit it. So I did pretty good on the Helen Keller. All my shots were around a 10 ring. I mean, there were 10s and 9s.
So people ask all the time what the square is for. That's literally what it's for, isn't it?
Well, the square is actually left over from the old days of bench rest shooting when we had real low resolution scopes. And a lot of times with those low resolution scopes, you really couldn't have a good point of aim, so they would use that box right there to aim with.
But that's what I mean. They're literally so that you can help your
I've often said that I wish that square wasn't there anymore, but when you get on those days when you can't see, it's still relevant. So I'm glad they haven't listened to me and taken it away.
Yeah, obviously.
Especially this weekend at the Tack Driver. So anyway, going back to my birthday party, we had a shoot there that we would shoot at 500 yards with the shot marker. We put a 300-yard target out, just relatively that you see virtually. And we would shoot 5 cider shots, and then 15 shots for score with no ciders or anything, So it was just 15 shots, and we would score the targets. I came in second. Frank Davis was first, and the rest of the people didn't fare too well.
So Frank beat you at your own birthday party.
He beat me at my own birthday party. I thought he might just throw a shot,
Yeah.
But
thank goodness.
We were the only two that had scores in the 140s for 15 shots, and the other ones were 20s and 30s. But it was pretty interesting. It was just like reliving Sunday at the Tack Driver. When one of the shooters, and some of the guys may know, Pat Wood was shooting his Dasher. I was watching the conditions. I was watching the tablet, and the conditions were identical. And I saw a shot fly up around 11 o'clock. His group was forming just about halfway in the X ring and halfway in the 10 ring, and this shot jumps out almost an 8 about 11 o'clock. And one of the other guys attending the party was looking. I said, "Watch, next shot's going to go up there, and then the next shot's going to go back to the group, and the conditions never changed at all. So usually when I see something like that in my guns, it's usually something's loose, something's in a bind, something's not matched up right, you know. So when I came back and we were going to do this podcast, I was looking for some examples, and I had a bunch of Remingtons that a shooter brought over. I usually don't work on them anymore, but he's a old long-time customer, so as a favor to him, I'll do them. He brought some of these bases with his gun, and these are still old Weaver bases. And as you can see on this one right here, this one on the rear actually rocks. So the only thing that's holding this in place is this 2 screws in the center. If you bump this, or if the front one is out of line, this thing could be leaning to one side or the other. I don't know if you can see that rocking.
Yep, you can see it.
And this one, I'm going to give it to you just to verify. If you look down it, so this is the rear one rocks, and if you take a look at this, Eric, look at the light underneath the base. There's daylight in it. Hold that base and look at the light from the back of the action.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Like you're playing flute.
Yeah, I see it.
See that light underneath it?
Yeah, so it's touching on the sides.
Right. So
and nothing in the center.
If you pull that down, that's in a bind already. Plus, you're adding a little MOA, just like maybe 1 MOA or half an MOA, you know. So that's already moving your scope off center, you know, when you're trying to adjust for that.
Right.
So now you've got a front one that's high centered, and then you got another one
it's the opposite. Yeah, it's the opposite.
Yeah. So what we typically do with something like this, we mill a channel in the center of these things to allow them to have like 2 feet, and then we bed them down to the receiver. So this one right here, this one's already high centered, so putting a channel's not of any benefit. So this one, we would just kind of scuff this up to get rid of that shiny anodized finish, and then we would put some release agent on the action and just slightly cinch the screws down to have that form. I thought Erik was coming to give me a hug. I guess I'm not that lucky this morning. No birthday hug. Holding hands now. I'm happy now. You want me to hold it right here?
Yeah, well, that's fine. Just go back to the way you were holding it.
Okay.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah. Now I'm out of focus.
Sorry, guys. I'm trying to make
this. This is a live cast. We have some little technical difficulties once in a while. Sometimes we have a lot of technical difficulties. This being one of them. Okay. Well, anyway, what I'll do with this front base right here, if I was going to have to use this one, I would try to talk the customer into maybe a higher quality base. But if I had to use it,
hold it right there. For some reason, I can't get it close.
Okay, I'm not moving. You see, I don't have Parkinson where I'm shaking or anything like that. Old as I am. Okay. So what I would typically do with this one right here, if I had to use it, I would scuff the bottom of this anodizing slightly. I would wax the top of the receiver with honey wax. And I would wax the screws as well. I would mix up some JB weld up, and I would put that on there and then just tighten those screws up lightly. I don't want to, bend this thing down like you can see. Erik, there's quite a bit of daylight underneath that in there.
Yeah.
So
you should be able to line it up.
Yeah. Right now, it's just bearing on these 2 edges, and the center's got a gap in it. Like that. Too bad you can't see a light shine through. But anyway, Erik's my witness. And then on this rear one that you can see is rocking. I mean, it's considerable. So, like I said, the only thing that's holding that thing down in place is the center of this piece right here where those 2 screws go down. What I would do in this one, I would put this in the mill, and I would take a 1/4-inch end mill, and I would mill a little channel, maybe about 10 or 15 thousandths deeper than what the center of this base is. That would allow it to rest on those 2 legs, kind of like this front one is. I would do the same thing here. I would coat the receiver with honey wax, and I would bed that, and then after we're through bedding, then we can torque the screws to place and have that not in a bind. Another problem you see with the one-piece bases, and here's one. I just grabbed one. It was the very first one I saw. If you loosen these, you almost have this. You have 2 different scenarios here. One, this thing still rocks on the front. So again, the radius or the diameter of the receiver, that radius right there does not match the radius on the bottom of the base. The radius on the bottom of the base is larger, causing it to, just right on the center of the base. But this one, we'll talk about putting things in a bind. If you tighten the base on the back, it doesn't rock on the back. It actually fits pretty well on this one. I'll tighten this, and I'll loosen these. But you can see it's raising up and lowering down probably about 10 thousandths or so. There's a gap underneath there, and it closes up. So when you've got this mounted, if you were just to mount it like this, you could be bending that rail down again. If this is a 0 MOA rail, this one happens to be a 20. Now you maybe have a 21.
Yeah.
But it's still in a bind, so you're mounting things on top of this, and you're possibly bending your scope, depending. If this was more solid down the bottom, those scopes bend pretty darn easy. If you ever want to see how easy one bends, take one of the big Picatinny bases like the ones that you use, which got the 3 screws in each one.
Yeah.
Leave one float, and you can bend that scope. I mean, you can bend it 10, 15 thousandths very easily. So, you don't ever want to put these things in the bind. If this was mine, and I will do that to this one because I already called the customer and let them know that we had an issue with this thing. I mean, you can just feel this thing move up and down when you loosen this front screw or this one behind it. It's a bad deal, but most of us never check these things, and then we go into competition with them. Like again, these are just 700s, but I've seen the same issue with bases in custom actions. You get one manufacturer that manufactures that thing, and the radius is slightly off, and then you've got problems from then on. My gun doesn't perform to its full accuracy potential. So anyway, those were some of the things I had this morning right here that I wanted to. I'm starting to see around the shop more and more often.
Well, as always, very useful.
But this right here, this is really critical, especially if you've got one of the roller bearing cocking pieces. You want to make sure. If I get a brand new one, that's the first thing I check. Make sure that there's clearance underneath that. If there's not, then you want to address that thing. Just move your cocking piece all the way up against that straight wall right there, and then just check it with a piece. When I said a business card, anything that's got 3 or 4 thousandths at least clearance underneath there, you're good. Most of the time, you wind up with 10 to 15 thousandths there. But anyways, I would check those out when I got home today. If I had a gun that had a roller bearing cocking piece or any of the bats for that. Even I've got a big 50 BMG one over there. It's exactly the same way.
Wow. So, people ask me all the time, and I don't know the answer, so I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
They go, what's Speedy's lead time? Because they go, I want to send Speedy some stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. I just know Speedy.
It's kind of hard to say, if it was I had a lot of people working for me, but a lot of times, the stock work is always the biggest problem with building rifles, especially with the wood stocks, because you can't make a mistake on those wood stocks when somebody's waited 8 or 9 months to get that stock, and then I do those at night when there's nobody around because I can't zig when I should have zagged,
Yeah.
And I had Brett Solomon down for the weekend, and we were working on his stock, and one of his last comments was, "No wonder it takes you so effing long to build a gun." I didn't know that he was falling asleep watching me work on the mill. We were just doing some inletting for the loading port and the bolt stop and the bolt handle so I mean there's just a tremendous amount of work that goes into those wood stocks. Even when I first get them, I say there's a lot of things that most people don't know. I don't just take the stock and start bedding it. I've got a tracking fixture I made that ensures that when I put the barreled action in the stock, that it's on the center line of the stock. So if I haven't used that tracking fixture in a while, it takes about 3 hours to set it up on the mill where it's tracking correctly, and then I can put the stocks in there. And then when I inlet for the guard screws and everything and the pillars going into the stock, I'm putting them down the center line of the stock. And I said, so most people don't know about that. They don't hear about that. They don't see it. That's just something that I do for my guns. I do it the same for customers' guns. So, but any stock that you get, I could go right to drilling pillar holes and then embedding it without doing that, and I would save 2.5 hours time on everybody's gun.
Yeah.
But when I build a gun, I kind of build them for me, and it's kind of self-serving because I always say that repetition is the mother of skill. So I want my guns to be right when I go to the line, and the way to ensure that I keep doing that and discovering new ways to make them better is to do the same thing on other people's guns. I mean, I only build like you only build 3 or 4 guns for yourself in how many years?
Yeah, about 10 years.
Yeah. So if I did one gun for myself every 10 years, I mean, my skills wouldn't be that good, so, but and you've got that, you've got, once you finished it, you send it off to the painter. You've got a lag time there, and then you're working on other guns when those guns come back from the painter. And, it just starts to get into a big bottleneck there.
Yeah. I can see how that would work. Yeah.
And you can ask most of the guys that shoot with me all the time. Usually when I'm going to a match or something, I'm putting on a new barrel the night before. I'm pretty fortunate that I keep everything the same, and it doesn't take a very long time, and I'm sure you will attest to this. Once you do say the thing's the same, you've got the same chamber, the same bullets, it doesn't take too long to develop a good load for your gun. So usually on our practice day, when we get to the match, I can take a new barrel and do a load development for it and go.
Yeah. Well, good.
I had a question that somebody texted me this morning for you, Erik.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if they're calling in yet or not, but they wanted to know, do you still get, well, they asked for if you and I still get butterflies when we go to the line.
Oh, that's a good question.
And what do you do to overcome it?
Short answer is yes. Depends on the match. If it's a big match, typically the very first match of the competition, there's a little bit of nerves, simply because you really don't know how the rifle's going to shoot. Mm-hmm. It's that very first match that's going to dictate how the whole rest of the week's going to go, right? Because we work on these rifles so much, and we prepare and we tune and all that, but you travel and all that stuff, and that's gonna be the match that dictates. It's gonna set the tone, right? So I do, but I just have a system, right? And I implement my system, and
you share that system with anybody?
Well, it's no different than anything. Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, I set up my rest this way, I set up my rifle this way, I put my ammo here, I put my I set up everything like I always do, and then when I'm shooting, it's
practice the economy of motion.
Yeah, economy of motion, right? And as I'm shooting, I'm like, okay, I look at the target, I make a wind call, I shoot, and it's just rinse and repeat, right?
Right.
So if I have a system, there's not a whole lot of room in my brain to preoccupy myself with worry, right? Because I have a system to implement. Typically, 5, 6 shots in, the nerves start to go away.
Yeah.
Especially if the gun is shooting really. Either way, they're gonna go away.
Mm-hmm.
If the gun's shooting really good, they actually takes longer for the nerves to go away if the rifle's shooting really good, because it's like, okay, it's shooting really good now. Is it gonna hold the whole 20 shots, right? And typically, if it holds, because even if you drop points, you kind of know what to expect,
right?
And if the rifle's behaving properly, shooting what we call shooting on call,
right?
Then the nerves go away, and now it's like, okay, I'm good. If it's shooting like crap, then the nerves go away really fast, because all right, I'm out.
You're in panic mode now.
Well, it's not panic mode. It's like, oh crap. All right, well, it is what it is, and then it's just damage control the rest of the time.
Right.
You're like, all right, well, this championship is probably it's gone now, but now it's just like, all right, what can I do to now? You kind of start working on trying to fix the rifle, not so much to win that match, but to win the next one.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whenever that is, just learn something from it. But yeah, that's what I do. It's
I'm just opposite. I don't have any butterflies. I mean, I can't wait to shoot. All the tuning, gunsmithing work has all been done in preparation for that. The only time I may have some apprehension, not butterflies, would be if I came really unprepared and I just showed up to shoot.
Yeah.
But I'm usually, I can't wait to get up to the line and shoot. And I never put any pressure on myself on that first match, because I usually get better as I get better handle on conditions.
Yeah.
And just try not to kill myself on that first one.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we got some people here on the chat. So if you guys are want to ask Speedy some questions live, again, go join the chat on the link, either Patreon or on the forum. Click the link, and we'll answer some questions. So we got one here. Let's see. Let's see if we can get this thing to work. All right. Let me see. I'm going to have to change the scene here.
You get a chance to look at who we're talking to?
Yeah, but I usually don't. Simply because
you get a little shy.
Yeah, yeah, they get a little shy, and they kind of want to do they don't want to be seen typically, so just don't.
Especially if they're sitting there in their wife's pajamas or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, let me bring them in, and what am I doing? There we go. Let me put the camera on you, boss, because I'm sure they want to talk to you, not to me. Okay, here we go. Can you hear me?
Hello.
How you doing?
Let me put the camera on you, boss, because I'm sure they want to talk to you, not to me.
To what? Can you hear me?
Okay, here we go.
Does it work?
Yes, sir.
There you are.
Can you hear me? How you doing?
Good.
I'm doing well. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. You got a little echo in there.
Yeah, turn off the volume from the live stream, and just focus on the.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Oh, that's awesome. Just wanted to say happy birthday to Speedy. Sorry, I lost my voice.
Well, I've been losing it too. Thank you very much.
Yep, many, many more. Best of health and all the happiness.
Well, I appreciate it. You got any questions?
Basically, I had an argument with the wife, and I'm going to send the money in for the next Tack Driver. How do I prepare my PPC rifle? I'm all East End with with fixed scopes, and I have a feeling that a fixed scope is not going to work.
Well, I shot a fixed March 48 High Master on Saturday. I mean, it was perfectly clear. I could see all my shots really well. The magnification was just about perfect. And Sunday, I don't think anybody could see their shots. Some guys, I don't know what it was on the other relays. Some guys continued to shoot real well and didn't have any issues. But, I mean, the majority of the people on Sunday were always talking about, to each other, could you see my shots? Or, I was watching Wayne Campbell shoot next to me, and, I think he was just as confused at what he had shot as I was, until they posted those targets. We weren't really sure of what exactly we shot, so. As far as I think next year, too, they're going to allow spotting scopes on the bench, which have not been allowed up to this point, just in case that we have that same event happen. So what scopes do you currently have?
So on two rifles, I have 42 40 by 44 Night Forces.
Yeah.
One of them actually is Jim's from his backup rifle.
Okay.
But I was thinking maybe slap a 8x80 March on one of them.
Well, I mean, there was a gentleman that was shooting one of the 8-80 marches, and every time I'd see him go to the bench, I kept seeing him crank the power down and down and down. I think the last setting I saw that he had on there was like 30, So the 80 power didn't aid him one bit, so.
Gotcha. Well, I guess it's going to be an experience.
Yeah, I kind of went out there this year to experience it for myself for the first time and see what I needed to do or prepare for next year. The biggest thing to do is to have some good wind flags to where you can read the conditions. And I said the wind flags from about 200 yards to the 300-meter line are anywhere from 20 to 25 feet tall. So if you go, and like I did, I wasn't prepared to have flags that tall. Luckily, some of the guys on the bench I was on had flags that reached that high. So we put all of my flags. I had plenty of flags, but not enough stands. And we used my flags all the way out. They were identical to Wayne Campbell's. I put green ribbons on mine, and Wayne had orange ribbons on his. So it made it look like we had a little lane of the same Smiley Hensley flags.
Gotcha.
And you have plenty of tail material because you can use some really long tails on your flags out there. Some people had little that at most matches would have been sufficient, but at 300 yards, a little tail that was 2 feet long looked like it was 2 inches long. So those longer tails hanging about 6 or 7 feet below your wind flag right there were really of aid at distance right there. But wind flags, I think that's going to be paramount for anybody to shoot out there and do well.
Gotcha. I'll work on those. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. If you need anything else, you can contact me at the shop, and I'll try to get back to you. The email is
Speedy. I'm all hooked up.
Yeah.
I just need experience and practice.
Well, I don't know if you can really practice for that match. You have just if you can shoot well at 100 and 200 yards, I think, and got a rifle that's well tuned, that's what you need to show up with.
Well, I'm gonna bring my appetite over there.
Yeah. Do you load the preload, or are you gonna come and load at the bench?
I'm gonna do both. I just have so much brass. I just probably gonna bring 400 pieces.
Yeah, everybody that placed up high was all loading there at the range so that they could tailor their loads for the conditions, because there it would start out at 30, high 30s or low 40s in the morning, and then by by mid-morning stuff, it was already up to 70, 75 degrees. So that was quite a temperature swing. And if you couldn't keep up with it with your loads, it was real easy for your gun to come untuned.
Wow.
Yeah, I started out shooting 30 grains, and by the end of the day, you know, you would think you might go down, but I wound up going up. I wound up shooting 30.4 and 30.5 grains in my PPC at the end of the day.
Wow, sounds like I'm going to be ready for both.
Yep. I'll say one thing you'll notice out there, there's a tremendous exchange of information and a lot of camaraderie. So if you go out there and you get kind of lost, everybody out there is willing to help you. It's one of the most fun matches I've shot in the last 40 years.
Sounds awesome. Looking forward to seeing you there.
You'll enjoy it. I look forward to seeing you too, boss.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you, Erik.
Thank you. So the Tack Driver. Let me.
They're gonna have to open it up to like 200 people by the time we're through with this podcast.
Well, the yeah, it's it's the most fun match that I've never been to.
It is. It's if Jim Klein. I mean, he's kind of rude and crude, but that's what kind of makes the show. Like I've told everybody, if he had a show in Las Vegas, I'd pay premium price to go see him at a comedy club. It just never ends with Jim. He also likes to be paid in $50 bills. He loves Hamilton.
Oh, there it is.
Everybody bring $50 bills to the Tack Driver next year.
Yeah, well, good.
I'll probably never attend again, but
You're never going?
no, he probably won't let me go after
that. Good. Guys, if you guys want to ask Speedy some questions, jump on. So this Tack Driver, you know, sounds like I need to shoot a 7mm, and I'm not afraid. You know, I'll shoot a 7mm. I ain't scared. But you know,
well, yeah, every discipline of shooting was out there set for F class, but
let's discuss what I could shoot.
You know, you had Tom Mosel on here, who's 1,000-yard bench press champion. And you know, everybody struggled out there. You know, it was just, but it was so much fun to shoot it. You really didn't care. Another thing that you would see at this match that I don't see at matches anymore, and bench press used to be this way. Usually when we went out to eat or during lunch breaks, everybody would sit around and kind of discuss cartridges and loads and tuning and this and that, you know. And it's kind of not the case anymore. Everybody's kind of real secretive about what they're doing. They don't want the other guy to get a leg up on them. Yeah. But in the mornings out there, we'd be, after we got prepped and all that, you know, me and Jeff Pinehart and Bart Sawyer would sit around and talk about what loads we're shooting, what happened during the course of the day, and try this and try that, you know. And it was like everybody was trying to make sure that you competed to the highest level that you could possible, you know. So.
Yeah. Well, that's good. We got Mike here.
Okay, Mike.
Hang on. Yeah. How you doing? Hang on. Now, let me make sure I have you here. Let me see. That's me. let me get you on here, Speedy, so that I'm sure they want to see you and not me.
They may have already seen me enough.
Yeah, it's probably. All right. How you doing, Mike? Go ahead and whatever question you have for Speedy, send it.
All right, great, thanks. Yeah, you guys are gonna get me fired from work with all these live streams.
Well, at least it's for a good reason.
That's right. Yeah. Well, happy birthday, Speedy.
Thank you, boss.
So from the last live stream a few days ago, I'm not allowed to ask you about the sine waves on the case next, but
you're still on that, huh?
Well, you know that sine wave, and it's in Tony Boyer's book. I mean, we could go the rest of the live stream on the story about how that came about, but the sine wave is really just a predictor, or that says that I've reached at least the minimal clearance between the neck and of the chamber and the cartridge. When your brass is too thick, you'll see that a black ring forms around the mouth of the case. Usually when I've got a new chamber, I'll take my little pumpkin portable case lathe, and I'll start with about 1/1000 clearance, and then I'll take about 2/10 of a thousandths off those necks until that sine wave forms, and I know I've at least achieved minimal clearance. That's not to say that I won't go beyond that, on some of the other cartridges, especially like on the F class, I may go beyond that. And then you'll see that sine wave disappear, and you'll see a black ring form around the junction of the neck and the shoulder. That's telling you that you've got, more than sufficient neck clearance at that time. But the sine wave isn't necessary to produce the accuracy that's required. Like I said, I'll go beyond that if I'm, when I play around shooting F class, I don't shoot it real seriously. But when I do, that's not as sterile an environment as when I shoot bench press on a bench. You're throwing all that equipment down in the dirt and the sand and the blowing wind. And, that wind on the ground is usually worse than the wind is about, 4 or 5 feet above. So you've got, especially out here in these parts of the world, I don't know about by you, but out here you've got in New Mexico and Arizona, you're laying out in the sand, And so what Erik said, the other day was also correct. But I said the sine wave, all it does is tell you that you've achieved at least the minimal clearance that you need between that brass and the neck to expand correctly and release the bullet. That's when you start seeing that side where you get, I would call it perfect release. We call it happy brass here in Texas, but you don't have to compete at that point right there. Like I say, if I was going to do like Erik does and travel all over the world, I would definitely have more clearance, because you never know the environments you're going to be laying and subjecting those type of rifles to.
Thanks.
Did I confuse you completely now?
No. It's a great answer.
But yeah, if you'll look at Tony Boyer's book, and hold on a second, I'll tell you what page to look at. Where's my files? We don't need that. Maybe I won't tell you. Let's see here. I've got it right here. I just got so many files.
While Speedy's talking, we have Pete kind of waiting. So, Pete, just hang on. We'll get to you.
Erik, maybe you can address my question here I have. So while he's looking that up, question about length of pull.
Hang on.
Yep.
Go ahead. Length of pull for Sprone.
For prone shooting, the difference that. So my new F-class rifle, I have an adjustable butt pad on it, and it feels like it's an inch longer. Well, it is an inch longer than the way I had my previous rifle set up. And I do feel like sometimes I have to crawling on top of the rifle on that. And I was thinking maybe about just taking that off, but I'm not sure if there's really a fixed way for general rule for length of pull when you're shooting prone.
Not really. Technically there is, but I always tell people, just do what feels right. This obviously doesn't feel right to you. So, two things you can do: move the scope back, or cut the stock and move yourself forward. The easiest at this point, just move the scope back so that you don't have to crawl up to it. But if you have two different rifles, that's why I like to build them exactly the same for that purpose. I want to be able to get behind either one of my rifles, and I want them to feel exactly the same, which is, in my opinion, is a huge advantage because it's a distraction. So I would adjust it so that you didn't have to do that. And again, two ways: move the scope back or move yourself forward. So that means you have to shorten the butt pad, or or the stock, cut it, whatever. So that's what I would do.
Let me ask you something. Do you have are you crawling up on the gun to get to your scope, so where you get a full field of view?
Yes, and I feel like I have the scope almost as far back as it'll go, really.
Oh, that might be addressed with a different set of rings that allows you to move it further back. Some of the some of the scope rings that I see don't allow a lot of movement back and forth. You know, one of the bad parts about crawling up on that stock is a lot of times you're not only crawling up on the stock, but you're also pushing off to the one side or the other. You know, that when you shoot and then you release that, or sometimes when you shoot, you release that force on that stock, and then you get those flyers. You know, so I see that in our sport all the time. I'll see the guys, you know, on the stock, and it's because they're trying to reach their scope. So, you know, the rings that you've got, you may have paid a lot of money for them, but they may not serve you well. You know, so I would look at that first and see if, even if you take that rear ring off and just move the scope back on a Picatinny rail, and to where you get a full field of view where you're not crawling up on the stock, and then see what you have to do.
Thank you.
All right. We got Pete. Pete, you got a question?
Yeah, but with regards to the last fellow's question, I noticed before I changed scopes, I was having that same kind of issue, and I saw that Area 416 has a 0 MOA cantilever one-piece mount, and I thought about just reversing that thing so you could move your scope back a little further. I don't need to do that now, but that might be something you could look at or talk to them about.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't know about that
I
one
don't know
either.
either, but
I would advise strongly against that. What about you, Speedy?
You know, if it was designed a certain way and you start, you know, infringing on that design, you know, you may suffer the consequences. But that's one of the things I see in all the time is guys crawling up on their guns, you know, and trying to get that full field of view, and you know they're causing more problems for themselves. I mean, a good example is that I typically shoot March scopes. I mean, you can tell when I usually have a March hat or a March shirt on, but I had two rifles built for me. They're my Scoville, and they've got the weight system in the back and all that, and there's no way to adjust the stocks or cut the back off, you know. So on those two guns, I shoot the Night Force 42 power scopes because they're longer scopes, and I can get them further back when I can get square behind the gun and not be pushing the gun over and trying to crawl over the top of it. So I'll say that's the issue that you may have to just adjust with, like I said, a different pair of rings. A lot of times the Picatinny rails don't come back as far as they should too either. You know, I've got a.
Why don't we just cut the stock?
Well, I mean, if you've got a rad in there, you can't cut it.
Why not?
And sometimes when you put a rad in there, like most people, they've got the adjustable cheek piece in there, and you start infringing on the territory that thing lives in.
How about we quit using rads? I mean, what do you need them?
I can shoot with or without a rad, except for a 300 WSM. I probably would want to.
I don't understand the rad thing. It's you know, I don't use them. I don't.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but you've already learned how to sit square behind, or lay square behind the gun.
Well, that's
too.
my point.
Yeah.
I feel like the rad it's a Band-Aid. And now is that the issue? You have a rad system?
are you talking to me?
Mike?
Yeah.
Do you have a rad on your gun, Mike?
No, I don't have a rat.
See?
Yeah.
You just cut
In your
cut the
case,
stock.
You can cut the stock off and shorten it up.
But what I did get was an adjustable butt pad, so it's got like an inch of that sitting on there, and I'm thinking about just taking that off.
Yeah, get rid of it.
I'm actually not using the adjustability at all.
Well, you can't because you got to go the other way.
Yeah, you can change. You can go to a thinner pad too.
But you can just cut the stock.
Yeah,
and reinstall. Then you have adjustability
unless
on
you
there.
got a $600 paint job on it.
You can still cut it
Yeah,
very carefully.
I'll bring it over here next time.
Anyway,
Ship all the guys' paint off.
yeah. So Pete, what was your question, Pete?
Well, it has to do with wind. If you're shooting
we
out,
don't know how to do that
south-
around here.
Okay, well.
I'm
Yeah.
joking.
Yeah. Is that
If you're shooting out
is that for Eric or me
At a
or
top.
both of us?
Well, for both of you.
Okay.
Or talk about shooting out to 1,000 yards, Speedy. I'm not sure if that's something you'd like to do or not.
Oh,
I know
Speedy
you're-
just does 100 yards.
Uh,
His bullets,
that's
you
what
know,
I
those
figured.
PPCs
Yeah.
at 100 yards, they just fall off.
I usually get drafted into shooting on some team that like the spindle shooter or something like that. Shoot with Michelle and Nancy, and to me, reading the wind at 1,000 yards isn't much difference than reading the wind at 100 yards. I know it's at a greater degree of movement, but the wind and the mirage look identical to me. I was shooting
Sure.
one time on the spindle shooters team, and Nancy said, "Speedy, you're shooting while the target's still moving." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Yeah, you're shooting when the target's coming up." And I said, "No, I'm not." She goes, "Yeah, you are." And I said, "No," I said, I'm already anticipating your wind call, and as soon as you give it, I shoot, you know. And I think you're seeing that as the target moving, but I said, I'm not, you know. So, like I said, to me, reading the wind, in fact, here's a funny story.
Let me touch on that right quick.
Yeah.
She was coaching you.
All right.
You know that's real easy to keep you from shooting when the target's coming up.
Yeah.
Don't give you the wind call until the target's up.
Well, like I said, I was already anticipating
But
the wind
still,
call.
if the coach never gives you the wind call, you should never shoot.
I
Correct?
don't shoot until.
That's my
Yeah,
point.
no, I wasn't shooting until she gave it to me.
yeah,
But
so
as
that's-
soon as she gave it to me, I
Yeah,
was ready to
so
shoot.
that's a you know, this is for the young coaches out there or even experienced. You control the flow, right? You control how fast the shooter shoots or when they shoot.
Right, it's a wind, yeah.
Because I've seen that a lot. They give the call and then the target's still coming up and they shoot and they go, "Hey, you're shooting too fast." Well,
Right.
don't give me a wind call.
Yeah, well, I would shoot as soon as she gave me the call, but there was no lag between that,
Yeah.
you know. And you're right, you know, when you're being coached, you know, most of us are used to shooting as individuals and making our own decisions, and it's hard for you to say, you know, I think I need to hold another, you know, a half, you know, and but if you do that, you screw the coach.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, whatever she'd say, that's what I would hold, you know. And if
Yeah.
it went wrong, that was on her, not me, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But so what's the question?
Okay, so the question in that shell is, when do you dial wind and how much? So if you have to hold out to the 6 ring, are you dialing wind or not?
Well, me personally, I'm kind of a believer like John Myers was. I don't dial wind in, you know, unless the coach tells me. And that was a pretty funny story. Nancy told me, or the whole team, to put 5 minutes of left windage on their guns before the match started, you know, and they had that blow off period, and so I pick a spot where the center of the target is, and then when it goes down, I pick a landmark behind that so I can return back to center real quick, and anyway. During the blow off, I was shooting at that point, and I told her, I said, you know, I don't think we need 5 minutes. I think we only need like 3 minutes, you know. And then she turned around to the rest of the team and she said, the point blank shooter says, take 2 minutes off your gun. I hope he's right. So anyway, yeah, we're referred to Batra shooters are referred to as point blank shooters amongst the F-class shooters. We're kind of the, you know, low man out, but
So the way I go about
Go
it,
ahead.
it depends. If the mirage is really heavy, even if it's kind of mild,
yeah,
I'll put wind in so that I'm not holding in the center because the center, you know, you have the rings are closer together, right? So it's a lot harder to aim in the center when it's really the mirage is really heavy.
right.
So sometimes I'll put some wind, you know, and I like to add my wind in half-minute increments. So because that's the rings on the target,
All right.
right? And you know I might add half a minute or a minute so that I can hold out there on
the edge of the
9 ring,
Right.
you know, 3 ring or you know we call it 1, 2, 3 from center.
Yep.
Now if it's windy, again I like to hold past the 2 ring and out, so because it's easier to hold for me. Plus the ring value is the same because
Right.
in the center 1 and 2 ring are quarter MOA apart, and from the 2 on they're half MOA apart. So I like to be out there holding where they're all the same, you know, half MOA
Right.
apart. And so I like to go all the way out to 5, which is the edge of the black.
Right.
If it's more than that, then I'll add typically a minute. That puts me at the 3 ring, which is the 9, and then I can work in from there.
Yep.
And that way, if I need to take wind off, let's just say I'm holding 2, you know, and I'm getting really close to center, and or I'm holding center, you know, and let's say it dies down that now I'm holding center, and I don't want to be holding center, then it's easy just to put half minute on the, you know, take half minute off and then move over to the next ring. So that's how I do it. It may sound confusing to some people, but it's.
So what do you do when you get those windshield wiper conditions when it's side to
Well,
side?
when I get a windshield wiper condition, there's not enough wind to. I'm not holding past the 5 ring.
Right.
So then I just leave it
just
alone.
hold.
Yeah, I just hold. So that is typically what I do is I just hold left and right. You know, now if I can't see the center and it's a prevailing wind from the right, for example, then that's when I add some wind, so I'm not holding in the center. And then the next one is if I'm going past the 5 ring, you know, past the black, then I add a minute to get me back to 3, and then I work from there. But typically when you have that much wind, it ain't going to be working back and forth.
Yeah, and I'm just used to holding for when we shoot bench press. We don't ever crank in anything, you know. So
well, the problem in F class is once you get past that that black, the rings get bigger.
Yeah,
you know, they're not supposed to, but they do. So that's I work in the black, and then I operate in that scenario in that range.
Yeah, even out there at Tack Driver, I didn't want to lose my dead air 0, you know.
Yeah, but it's 100 yards, dude. It's 100 yards. The wind hardly
300
blows.
meters.
Wind,
Tack Driver.
does wind even blow over there?
Huh?
I mean, you guys are using 6 millimeters. Yeah, I'm gonna catch.
I can't wait for you to go attack.
I'm gonna catch it now. Anyway, Pete, did that answer your question? We can't hear you, Pete. You must have turned off your mic. Here, let me unmute you. Unmute your mic. Mike, oh, Pete. He's muted.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, I couldn't unmute it there for a minute. So yeah, that gives me an idea. I guess I shoot out of Ben Avery, so you know sometimes the wind really cooks out there, and if you get a 13, 15 mile an hour steady wind.
Well, those are easy. Steady winds.
Could have to dial to get on target.
Steady winds are easy. It's 0 wind and 20 mile an hour steady wind is really no different.
Well, that's why you need to have a good dead air 0 too, because that way if you go 1,000 yards, it's blowing 15 miles an hour, and you hold center and it hits the edge of the paper. You know you've got an indicator what the relative wind is doing to your bullet. You know.
Yeah.
And then you can start adjusting from there. But if you're ahead or behind the conditions, and you shoot, and that bullet only moves half the target when it should move, to the edge of the target, you're going to have a rough day.
Now that's a big one. Let's talk about dead wind 0.
Yeah. In fact, that's the first thing Nancy asks you. Do you have a good dead air 0?
Well, most people think they do.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And even if they do, they haven't ensured that they've done a tall target test and all that. But, they may have a good 0 at 100 yards.
Maybe when they start.
Once they go out to 1,000, and if their scope is not perfectly tracking perfectly, then now they just added windage as they came up. But anyway, I hear this all the time. They go, the flags are coming from the left, the Mirage is coming from the left, and my bullet went
to right.
When
I went right into the condition.
Went left.
Yeah.
The conditions are weird. No, you just don't have a good wind 0.
That's right. You can't. It's hard to do anything when you're not zeroed in at whatever distance you're competing at.
Yeah. So, I sat through Emil Preslick's wind reading class.
Yeah.
And it's on the forum too, guys. So if you're watching this, if you're a member, go watch that. It's his wind reading class from the PRS Expo. And one of the things he said was, a bullet has never left the barrel and said, fuck it, I'm going upwind today.
That's true.
That has never happened, and never will that happen. So if you're shooting into the wind, you have a bad zero. It's not a weird condition. So be careful with that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people won't take the time to go do a tall target test or any of that stuff. You know, it's critical.
Yes, sir. All right, Javier, you got a question for Speedy? Turn your mic on.
Not now. I'm just listening.
Well, no, if you're here, you got to ask a question.
Now you're screwed.
Yeah.
Just make something up.
Not really a question. Just listening and learning.
Okay, well, you had your chance.
We appreciate you listening.
So,
I'm listening to you from Mexico.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
¿de dónde?
Querétaro.
Querétaro, México.
¿Dónde está eso?
En México.
I know it's in Mexico. ¿Dónde en Mexico? You probably didn't know I knew how to speak Spanish, did you?
Yeah, I speak Spanish a lot better than English.
¿Dónde está Querétaro?
A 2 horas de Ciudad de México. Somos una ciudad de 2 millones de habitantes.
That's a big city. 2 million people.
Yeah, 2 million. 2 hours south. Is it para el sur?
Hacia el norte
Al norte. North
de
of
Ciudad de México.
Mexico City. 2 hours north of Mexico City.
You're right there in the big cartel country.
Yeah. Anyway,
No todo es cárteles en México. También habemos deportistas.
there you go. So, Speedy, I think we touched on equipment prep. You talk about those windshield wiper conditions.
Right.
Those are tough. That's what gets everybody.
Right.
So when you have a condition like that, what is your strategy? I mean, let's say you're shooting F-class, you're shooting for score. Because I know in benches it might be a little different. But, let's say you're shooting for score. F-class, you've done F-class. What is your strategy? Do you play both sides of the target, or do you just sit around and wait and only shoot one side of the target?
Well, typically, when you're shooting, that's kind of almost a head-on condition, and you'll get a mirage picture that looks similar to a boil. It's not a boil, but it's because the wind's either coming from you, or to you, or going away from you. So I'll watch the mirage to where it just starts to run one way or the other, and then I'll watch the big flags to where the tails are leaning in the same direction as that mirage is running. And I'll use that as my indicator to shoot. That's my favorite condition to shoot in bench race, is a headwind or a tailwind.
Yeah, but the question is, do you only pick one side and shoot in that, or do you play both sides?
I would rather pick one, whichever one is the least amount of movement on my bullet. So usually in the mornings, and you probably already realize this, that most ranges, regardless of the velocity of the wind, they have a wind that especially like at the Whittington Center, it changes over the course of the day. You can almost predict by the time when this is going to start to happen, and so like John Myers, we used to go out there and wait for those conditions, and they become pretty predictable, And I said that the velocity or intensity of the wind may vary. So we start to build our database on that, so we can come back and look at it. And nowadays with my phone, and I'll show you from the Tack Driver right here. I'm not going to play any of it for you, but on my phone, you've got the voice memos.
Uh-huh.
So every time I went to the line, you can see all the different recordings right here.
Mm-hmm.
When I'd come off the line, I would say what I shot, why I shot it. Do I feel that I need to make an adjustment to my load or not? And then the next one up of it, when they post my target, because a lot of times you really couldn't see what you shot until you got the targets back. You know, I'd say what adjustment I was going to make, if any, you know. So, and most of that was based on condition. Out there, that wind was coming across the range from about, I'm going to say 7 to 8 o'clock from behind you, going across the range diagonally. It would hit those trees out about, I'm going to say about 200, 250, and then it would turn back. So you see the flags coming this way, hit the trees, and come back this way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see when this would let up, it hit those trees, and you see this let up. It'd be about a 10 or 15 second lag. And it seemed like the flags further down were more critical than the front ones were, you know. And probably if you just had to remove all the flags, you say those flags around at 150 to 200 yards, to me anyways. And I said, when we set our flags, I didn't know that Wayne Campbell was sitting next to me, and we set our flags almost identical on the same spot just based on, I guess, experience. I've never been there, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I walked down, and we had 4 guys setting the flags. I walked down and set them back from the I told the guys this is where we want them, you know, from the target back, you know. And when we were all through, Wayne's and I were almost just maybe a foot or difference apart, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. You know,
I like shooting that. I like shooting the headwinds or the tailwinds. A lot of people, you know, don't like them because they don't have a gun that's tuned to shooting that, because you get a little bit more vertical in it.
Yeah, but that's going to push your bullet the least, right?
Yeah.
Compared to a full value wind.
Yeah. Well, you have to stay within that 26% margin of error. You know, it's the least amount of potential error, but if you go beyond that, then you're at 50%, you know.
Well, what really gets most shooters is the 11 to 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's 50% error.
That's what I mean, you know. And the noon to 1 o'clock or noon to 11 is pretty minute.
Right.
But what gets them is they miss to the left or to the right.
Right. Well, that's why I don't like shooting one. I'm gonna pick one, the predominant one that repeats itself the most, and that's the one I'm gonna try to stick with.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, we got Jorge here. Jorge, you got a question for Speedy? Jorge, you got a question for Speedy?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't know I was on. I apologize. Yeah, I have a simple question there. Speedy, with your background on the bench rest, you just mentioned long-range bench rest. You obviously know about block rifles.
Right.
Have you ever had experience using a block rifle on an F-class setup as long as you can meet the weight?
Yeah, I built one for Brett Solomon. You know, the thing about block rifles, that's almost like having a tuner.
Explain what a block rifle is.
A block rifle is where you've got a block typically in front of the receiver that clamps the barrel in place, and the receiver and the barrel from the front of the block forward floats. But that block can be just like when we shoot it on our rail guns, are all block guns. It acts like a tuner. So
Gotcha.
Typically what we do with our block guns, first thing we do is isolate the barrel from the block by putting a Delrin sleeve around it. I believe your J. Young rail gun has those sleeves, doesn't it? Oh, no, you've got yours better.
Yeah, I betted mine.
Yeah. But
you betted it for me.
So the way you use a block would be to start with the minimum torque required to hold that barrel action in place, and then increase that torque about in 5 inch-pound increments until you reach the max torque on those particular bolts. That would be, and you'll see that what we do on the rail guns is we develop a real good load set on that minimum torque setting, and then we start increasing the torque on those screws and see how much effect that has on our groups. I believe if you listen to the podcast where Jeff Pinehart was talking about his rail gun, he said that the gun was shooting mediocre, and then he tightened up the torque on the screws, and it all of a sudden came into itself, and then he won that or broke a world record, didn't
Yes, sir.
he? Yeah. So
I got.
yeah, but just clamping a barrel between two aluminum blocks or steel blocks or what have you, you're gonna cause a whole lot more problems than what you were, unless you put, like I said, a Delrin sleeve between those blocks and that.
And obviously, if you cut the barrel down somewhat, I'm going to use an example. If it's a 1 1/4 inch barrel and you're cutting it down to fit inside the block area, you're also messing up the harmonics on the barrel there.
Yeah, I wouldn't cut it down. What I would do, I would make my blocks, you don't have to put it within the barrel channel. They can extend almost to the edge of the stock, and where the center of the block would almost mimic your barrel channel. Most barrel channels are 1'350", and so if you made a block with 1'350" bore in it, and then put a Delrin sleeve, those are 50 thousandths per side, you'd be good.
Okay.
And a lot of times, if you've got a block that's, let's say 6 inches long, I'll just use that number for simplicity's sake.
Right.
Block that's 6 inches long, trying to bore a sleeve 6 inches long, 50 thousandths thick, is quite difficult. But you could bore two 3-inch sleeves a lot easier, So that's typically on our rail gun. We'll have two sleeves in there that are split, and then when you put that split where the two halves come together, either at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and then I said, just start torquing those screws to whatever is minimum to hold that barrel. On our rail guns with the 5/16 bolts that we've got, it takes a minimum of about 40 inch-pounds to hold them in place. So we usually run anywhere from 40 up to about 70 inch-pounds maximum. But you'll see the gun will shoot different at every torque setting.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Now the big question is it worth it?
Is it worth it
for F-class?
Well, I mean, if you can do the job correctly, like I can in my tracking fixture, if I was to set up that block in the gun where it tracks right with the stock, it makes it easier for you to change barrels and action and stuff like that, without taking everything out of the stock. Yeah,
I don't take anything out of the stock anyway.
Yeah, you can't. You're glued in. But yeah, I said I don't know that you would really benefit from it. I mean, a lot of the guys in the long range stuff use those blocks, but that's usually on their heavy guns. I don't see too many of them on the light guns. They're more conventional.
Right. No,
I think you would probably in my opinion, you'd be better off to do like Erik and all the bench race shooters do a good bedding job, put the bolts in it, then come back and glue the action in, so you've got the best of both worlds. If for some reason the glue breaks loose, then you could just tighten up those bolts to 65 inch-pounds and carry on.
Sure.
But when it glued in, the stock and the action all function as one piece. You don't have that shifting of the action around. If you got a bad bedding job.
Right. That's the challenge. Okay. Thank you so much, Speedy.
All righty. Well, I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Erik.
So, the block guns have been tried in F-class. As you said, Brett tried it.
Yeah.
Others have tried it, and they finally just gave up. They just.
Yeah, well, another thing with the block guns too, you have to have higher rings and all that stuff to.
And even just shooting them, you're.
Yeah, that's what I say. Everything is up higher because you're trying to look over that block, So.
Yeah, but again, try it if you want, but it's been tried and it has not been successful.
Yeah, Brett's block gun, it shoots great, but it's in the safe.
Yeah. So before we go, let's talk about you shoot bench rest, you shoot F-class, you shoot some other disciplines. I've shot F-class. Now I have shot bench rest one match. shot PRS.
Yeah, I shot a little PRS, but it just.
So the question is the price to shoot. What does it cost to actually shoot these you know, like I'm going to talk about F-class first, right? People oftentimes talk about how expensive it is. It's not. You need a rifle that weighs less than 22 pounds.
Right.
Most rifles do. You need a rifle that is less than 33 caliber. That's most rifles, right? You need a rifle that you can shoot it off if it's a 223 or a 308.
FTR.
That's FTR.
Yeah.
All you have to do is single feed it. Most rifles fall in that, you know, if they're 223s or 308. In open class, just about every rifle out there, you literally can go to you know, Academy or any of these stores that sell guns, and just about every rifle on that rack will fall under F open.
Yep.
You know, if you have a hunting rifle, that's, you know, unless it's 223 or 308, it falls under open category.
Right.
So it really doesn't cost anything other than if you want to go to the range. Typically, if you
Can you shoot 223 in open?
of course,
Okay.
you know, it would throw you into the way it throws you into open is if you have a set rest, right?
Yeah.
But you can shoot a 223.
Okay.
Remember Arnie Brennan? Remember you built a
that's
308
right.
for
Yeah,
him
yeah.
in open
That's
because he wanted to break the 300-yard record. But if you shoot it off a bipod, or if you have a 308 that's 22 pounds, it's open now.
Yeah, it's open.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But the point is, it's really not expensive to shoot an F-class match. It's not expensive to shoot bench rest. It's not expensive to shoot PRS. It's expensive when you want to win.
Yeah.
That's when it gets expensive, right? But I would urge anyone, if you want to be a better hunter, you know, shoot PRS. It's probably going to be the most that's going to make you a better hunter.
Yeah, because it's going to expose you to all different situations that you may have to take a shot in, you know?
Yeah. But you don't have to have a PRS rifle. You can bring your hunting rifle, and you're going to be a better shooter when you leave than when you got there.
Exactly.
No question about it. You know?
I mean, I have so many customers that will build a gun and then to shoot competitively, and I don't see them at the bench press matches. And I said, well, how come you didn't come on this weekend? Well, I'm practicing. I said, you're going to learn more in one day.
Like learning.
Yeah.
I was
You come to
becoming a
match
much
too,
better
and,
shooter.
You know, a lot of times people don't really know what to get. And I mean, you can look at these shows day in and day out, unless you go through a complete rifle from stem to stern, you know. I like looking at this $100 bill here. But if they'll come to a match with whatever they got, just like what you're talking about, you know, and in our range, we say, bring whatever you got. We don't care if it weighs 50 pounds. Just come out and shoot with us.
Yeah.
And then they get to see this, and they get to see that, and they say, oh, you're loading with that?
It's actually best if they just show up with whatever they have and start shooting, because then they'll get, number one, they'll see if they really like it, and two, they'll get to see what the others are shooting, and then they'll have a better idea of what they need to buy if they want to go.
They're afraid of people like you and me that you know, we're not going to talk to them or see them, that they're going to look down on their stuff. You know, heck, we want them out there. That's the future of the sport.
Exactly. So it is not expensive to shoot the sport. It's expensive if you want to win. Now, you can bring the best rifle ever made.
Yeah.
You're probably still not going to win.
Yeah, sorry.
You know, because there's software and there's hardware, right? But you will be a better shooter. That I can guarantee.
You know, when you say expensive, that's kind of relative. You know, if when I bought my first bass boat, I could probably bought every rifle, and this was I bought a micro bass boat, and I could have still to this day I probably could buy every gun I shoot in competition in the shop just at the cost of that boat, let alone the trailer and the motor. You know,
and the truck and storage. But I mean, every sport is the same way.
Yeah.
You know, if you just want to go and play, it's cheap, right? It's relatively cheap, you know. But if you want to go and win, that's when things get expensive. You know, there's a lot more time involved. There's a lot more of everything. Equipment has to be better. But man, just come out and enjoy it. Just come out and shoot.
Yeah.
Bring whatever you have. I started with a hunting rifle. I had a 708 Remington and a 300 Win Mag hunting rifle. That's what I started with.
Yeah, well, I think you and I are similar in the respect that when we got into the sport, you and I both had a goal in mind, you know.
Right.
Was that we wanted to do X, you know, and this is what it took to achieve X, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't ever want to build my own guns and everything, but in order to get to that part where you could win consistently, I couldn't get anybody to build what I wanted, you know. So, yeah, I became a mechanical engineer and machinist and all that to be able to do this, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I could be making a whole lot more money and not be pissing people off every day because I'm late if I just kept my engineering job.
Yeah, for sure.
But, you know, that goal would have still been at the back of my head that I never achieved it, you know.
Yeah. So bottom line is this. Grab your rifle, hunting rifle, whatever, and go shoot bench rest, PRS, F-class. It doesn't matter. People are going to welcome you with open arms. They're going to help you, and you will be a better shooter when you leave than you were when you showed up. You're probably not going to win. It's almost a guarantee that you're not going to win. It doesn't matter. You will be a better shooter, and that I can guarantee. We got Nick over here. Nick, you got a question for Speedy or me?
Yeah, Speedy, I know you were looking at the terminus actions. I run a few terminus. You were looking at the ignition control tuning on that. What were the results of that?
You know, when we actually got into that terminus, are you talking about the 3-lug?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the fire control in that was virtually identical to a bat, and we basically did exactly the same thing to the terminus that we did to a bat fire control, and it worked out great. You know, so we've done, I don't know, probably about 15 or 20 of them, and you know, all with the equal results that we do when we work on the bat fire controls. So. I mean, I kind of like that action. I hadn't seen too many until I got that first one. And after that, I mean, if I had to buy one, that's probably the one I would buy. For PRS or something like that.
Uh-huh. Who makes that action?
Yeah, perfect.
Terminus?
Thank you.
Terminus?
Yep, Terminus.
Yeah.
Is that Joel?
I don't know who
Yeah,
makes
that's through
that
Joel. I
action.
run a couple of the
should know 'cause
Terminus.
I worked on them, but I just concern myself with the fire control, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that if you've got one, I'd be happy. You know, they're pretty easy to work on.
Cool.
Any other questions? Or did you cover
Nope, that was mainly what I had.
That's
okay,
it.
well,
that was
it.
it. That was simple.
Do you have one?
Yeah, I have 2 of them.
Okay. Well, like I said, I mean, yeah, I'm not partial to anyone out there, but of the ones I constantly see all the time, they're all pretty high quality. But you know, that one is so similar to the bat that you know you could almost say that you've got a bat. You know, I mean, it works great. I like the 3 lugs. My primary guns I shoot in bench rest are all the 3 lugs. Supports the case a little bit better when you shoot them. You know, and, you know, a lot of people argue that, but you look at a lot of the bench rest shooters that are at the highest level, and a lot of them got the 3 lugs. So, and of course, they discontinued the 3L. So, I'm gonna have
Of
to
course
guard
they
mine
did.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I do have one other. I know, Speedy, I think you were messing around. Alpha versus Lapua brass.
Well, you know,
I know what Eric's gonna say, but-
are you talking about PPC?
Yeah, I saw you've been messing with the PC. I shoot a GT, and I noticed I've been messing with the Alpha
Yeah,
brass, and I've had some pretty decent results with it.
The so far of the Alpha, this is the first time I ever played at all with the Alpha brass. I just wanted to test it because, like yourself, I have a lot of my customers asking me about what do you think of this. So I chose to shoot our last regional match with it. I shot 20 pieces of brass in a match previous to that. I shot in practice day, and I shot it in 2 full matches, and I took it down there to the Tack Driver, but I thought it was crazy, you know. But the brass, I've never had any of my PPC brass lasts that long. Typically, I'll change it at the end of the day. I never got a single clicker. The primer pockets never got loose. Now, what I don't like about the rest of the line of Alpha brass is that 080 flash hole that they've got in that brass. If you look at, I think I posted it with one of the videos I did on that Alpha brass. There's a PDF there on the development of the PPC, and Dan Pollock, the gentleman who developed Pyrodex, was working with White Laboratories to do the initial testing on the original 220 Russian case in the brass that Lou Palmisano and Ferris Pindell were using to develop the PPC. And one of the things that's mentioned in there is that that smaller flash hole delivered a more uniform and metered flash to the powder column than did the standard, American boxer type primer with a 080 flash hole in it. So that's the only Alpha brass that I know of that's got that in it. In fact, when it was going into manufacture, everybody said if it doesn't have that small flash hole in it, that it's just going to sit on the shelf, and none of the bench race shooters are going to use it at all. So they were kind enough to switch over their production to that 059 or 060 flash hole that's in it. I should know, but I'd be lying to you if I tell you which one it was right now. I want to say it was 059, but like the regular PPC has. But I said, as far as the other people I talked to that use some of the Alpha brass, they've got the same problem, or not problem, but the deal I found with the primer pockets, they never loosen up, So especially when all of us like to send those bullets out with their ass on fire. So in order to do that, you got to usually elevate your loads more than what the book calls for. And it's pretty tough. Like I said, I've never shot any brass that stands up like that Alpha brass that I shot. I wish they'd send me a box for all this advertising, but I don't like to have people give me anything. That way I can't give an honest opinion on it. So I buy anything that I make a comment on.
Yeah, there you go, boss. All right. Thank you all that participated on the live questions. And I'm hungry, boss.
Yeah, I think it's lunchtime.
Yes, sir. Guys, thank you for being here. And like the live stream.
Yeah.
You guys are really bad about this. There's 190 people and only 100 likes. I tell you, that's half the people.
Yeah, now it hurt my feelings too. I drove all the way out here and I can't even get a like.
Not even for your birthday.
No, give me some birthday likes. Come on.
Yeah. All right,
anyway,
boss.
Thank you guys for coming. If you like this format, just let Erik and I know, and we'll do more of them.
Absolutely. We got holidays coming up.
Yeah.
Man, we're there, man. Today's Halloween.
Halloween today.
Oh boy.
You can see I wore my costume. We got Thanksgiving. God bless you all.
All right.
Keep them coming.
That's it. Take care. See ya. Bye-bye. Keep them centered.